my income dried up. Completely. Zero.
If you're in a band or if you do anything creative, you've got to be a content creator.
I think the recorded side of the industry have to be able to answer a fundamental question, which is, why is it when live is taken away, artists can't make enough money to have a living?
For many musicians, the privilege of playing to hundreds, if not thousands, of adoring fans is a dream. But with the changes in how we consume our music, many artists now heavily rely on the revenue they generate from live performances. Cities like Sheffield have a supremely rich culture of live and alternative music, with historic venues on every corner of the city. Before the COVID pandemic, the UK's live music industry was booming, giving jobs to over 200,000 people, with over 30 million concert and festival attendees, as well as being worth over £4 billion. However, this changed in March 2020, as live music revenue dropped to almost zero until May, with the total amount of annual revenue plummeting by 81% compared to the previous year. So what happens when a multi-billion-pound industry with thousands of staff, musicians and crew suddenly shuts down overnight? Venues like Corporation and promoters like Jake Eckhardt know the answer to that better than anyone else.
It was devastating, it was terrifying as well, somebody who didn't have furlough to jump back on. I literally had everything pulled out from underneath me. I actually remember being at the gym and watching the press conference when Boris Johnson said that we were going, like, that the pubs were shutting and the venues were shutting, music events wouldn't happen, and I remember stamping off the treadmill and just crying in the dressing room because I didn't know where my life was going. I had to cancel 12 shows which were booked and got rid of another 10 which were penciled later in the year.
With Jake taking up bar work in order to make ends meet, I wanted to know how the absence of playing live impacted the rising Sheffield alternative scene.
Just demoralising at times, I'd say.
It was just the worst time. I mean, obviously it was bad timing for everybody, but the fact that we put his EP out literally a week or so before lockdown hit.
Without the live music aspect, it killed every bit of joy.
It's a good job we all have day jobs. It's basically, if we were relying on it as an income, nothing. There'd be nothing because no gigs, no income.
Friends who are lighting engineers, sound engineers, bar staff, those kind of people, those are the people who got hit from the entertainment side, people who would be putting on and running the gigs. I'm very fortunate in the sense of having the somewhat square day job, paying the bill, so I'm not reliant on this to make bread.
So how do musicians make money in the streaming age, especially without live music? Well, Spotify pays royalties using net revenue from subscription fees and ads. The royalties are then split up between songwriters, performers, or a record label. So for a single independent artist to make minimum wage, they would need over 2.7 million streams per year.
And it has, that hasn't really been answered yet by kind of streaming and recorded. Why is it that if curbs on live music happens, actually your artists aren't making enough money to have a viable kind of sustainable career?
Most bands who are small touring, maybe getting paid £300, £400 a show, they're not making any money on that. That is covering food, accommodation, petrol, van hire. So your major thing is merchandise sales at shows. That's how most musicians stay afloat.
That's an issue that everyone in the music industry needs to be addressing and thinking about, because it means that our ecosystem isn't actually sustainable.
Whilst we as the consumer may be getting a great deal, the same cannot be said for musicians. So I sat down with some music industry insiders to find out how exactly we got to this point. So, Gennaro, tell me, how have the changes in music consumption impacted artists?
There are more artists than ever before, thanks to the internet and streaming and online, YouTube, etc. So whereas in the past, maybe 20 years ago, there might only have been 500 to 1,000 fairly active artists that considered themselves professionals that would record and tour and look to earn a living. Now you're looking at tens of thousands and globally hundreds of thousands, if not more.
Often what's been problematic in the music industry, though, from our perspective, it leads back to the point about when we were formed and why. The creators haven't been central to those conversations about how things will work, the models of how things will operate, how things will, how people will be paid, or even having access to transparent information about how things work. I think that has to change. I think that is slowly changing.
There's something that is working in terms of people feeling they're artists and they want to create and they want to get their music out there. So having live venues isn't 100% essential. Obviously, we would still regard it as hugely important. But there are other channels, other platforms that allow an artist to make their music and to find an audience.
Every band at Soundcheck.
Platforms such as TikTok have produced and supplemented a vibrant music content community, with thousands of talented creatives using the platform and gaining new fans. With the pandemic keeping people indoors for a prolonged period of time, the music industry started to take notice of the app's potential. Now, TikTok is key to any artist, independent or major, looking to promote their art. I met up with Sheffield music expert Paul Tuffs to find out how it has impacted his venue.
Well, I think it's vital these days, and more so now, particularly with the younger ones, things like TikTok, that's a big thing. I mean, a chap who I've worked with in the studio before, Casey Lowry, he did a show the other week, no Facebook event, nothing mentioned on any of his socials, 200 people turned up purely from his TikTok. When people have 500,000 followers on TikTok or 1 million followers, it's almost like a flash mob sort of thing, where all these youngsters will just turn up out of the blue and it's like, whoa, it's a Monday night, it's raining, why are 200 people showing up at the venue? Things like Facebook, Instagram, unless you're paying for advertisement on there is a limit on the algorithms to actually get that organic thing where people can just go from 1,000 followers to 500,000 followers in a few months' time.
One band with particularly strong views of the platform is Desenser. I spoke to them about how they use social media to promote their music.
The interesting part, but you've got to be good at it. You've got to market and stuff.
Which is the toughest bit for me. I just like all that. I couldn't make a video like stuff like that just go from my head. And I find that hard when I'm trying to do stuff for a band because I've got to be present on social media. I've got to be pushing it. I've got to be.
Well, that's the thing. It turns music, which is art, into a numbers game, which is just kind of gross. But it's just how
like
it
that.
works.
Like I saw a thing about Charlie XCX. I have to mention it. Shout out. Other day, and she put a TikTok on saying that the label was forcing her to make TikToks. Oh my god! She made a TikTok.
This refers to the recent trend of artists claiming that their major record labels have been forcing them to create songs and content catered towards TikTok virality.
If someone offered me that chance, and said, "Do you want your song to be 6 seconds on this TikTok and it goes viral?" Yeah, go on.
I mean, it's still music connecting with people, just in a different way. It feels a bit more flippant and more throwaway, but it's still some kind of connection.
You shouldn't really be writing music to a quota. It should be actually a kind of artistic expression and can understand from a recorded perspective why they're doing this. I don't really think it's good for the overall health of music in general.
Whether you love or hate the current music consumption climate, one thing is for sure. Live music is back, and this time it's here to stay.